A man in a small boat drifts down the Colorado River deep inside the Grand Canyon in the winter of 1909. His name is G.E. Kincaid. He's a prospector hunting for gold and copper in the rock, and he's been on this river a long time. Then he looks up. High on the canyon wall, maybe 2,000 feet above the water, he sees a stain in the rock, a discoloration, something that doesn't belong. He ties off his boat. He starts to climb. And what he says he found up there, hundreds of feet inside the cliff, would, if it were true, rewrite the entire history of who reached America first. Mummies, copper weapons, a great stone idol seated cross-legged, holding a flower in each hand. And then, according to the story, the most powerful museum in America stepped in, took it all away, and made sure no one ever heard of G.E. Kincaid again. This is one of the strangest stories ever printed on the front page of an American newspaper. And the strangest part isn't what's in it. It's that, officially, none of it ever happened. Let's go back to the beginning. The date is April 5th, 1909. The place is Phoenix, Arizona, and the newspaper is the Arizona Gazette. On the front page that morning runs a long, detailed story under a headline about explorations in the Grand Canyon. The mysteries, it says, of an immense, rich cavern being brought to light. This is not a folktale whispered around a campfire. This is a real, dated, printed document. You can still find it. And it tells a very specific story. It says G.E. Kincaid, traveling the Colorado by boat, prospecting for minerals before the government closed the area off, spotted those stains on the canyon wall. He climbed up, and near the top, he found something no river of erosion ever made. Steps. Stone steps cut into the rock by human hands. They led to an opening in the cliff face, the mouth of a tunnel. Inside, the walls were smooth. He could see the chisel marks where tools had carved straight through solid rock. The main passage ran about 12 feet wide, then narrowed. Roughly 57 feet in, side passages began to branch off in both directions, and behind every one of them, rooms. Hundreds of rooms. Some the size of an ordinary living room, some 30 by 40 feet across. Oval doorways, round holes cut high in the walls like ventilation shafts. Walls more than 3 feet thick. And every passage, the article says, ran as straight as an engineer could lay it out with modern instruments. The scale of it was almost impossible to imagine. Kincaid estimated the complex could have housed 50,000 people. He kept going. He found rooms that looked like granaries with glazed pottery jars that still held ancient seeds, a cooking area, a great hall that looked like a place where people once gathered to eat. And then he found the workshop, a room full of copper tools, charcoal, slag and burned residue on the floor, the leftovers of smelting metal. Whoever lived here, the article claimed, had known a lost art. How to harden copper until it held an edge like steel. A secret the modern world had supposedly forgotten. But it was the next chamber that turned the discovery from strange to disturbing. A crypt. Along the walls, cut into the stone, were tiers of shelves, and on those shelves lay the dead. Mummies. Row upon row of them, wrapped in a dark cloth made from bark. Each body had been laid out with a copper cup beside it and a broken sword. The mummies on the lower shelves were wrapped crudely. The ones higher up were finer, more carefully prepared, as if rank had followed them into death. And every single one of them, Kincaid said, was male. No women, no children, only men, armed, laid out in their thousands. Which led to a chilling guess that this was not a city at all, but a barracks, a fortress, a place of warriors. Then there was the idol. In a large central hall where the passages crossed sat a great carved figure, cross-legged, calm, holding a lotus flower in each hand. The face, the article said, looked Eastern, and it reminded Kincaid of images of Buddha. From that one detail grew the idea that whoever built this place had come not from Egypt at all, but from somewhere across the world. Tibet, Asia, the Orient. And around the idol, the treasures. Swords and shields of copper and bronze. A strange gray metal that looked like platinum. Urns. Yellow stones that caught the light like a cat's eye. And tablets. Flat stones covered in a writing that looked, to him, like Egyptian hieroglyphs. The men who explored it give the whole vast complex a name. They called it the Citadel. Now here is where the story turns from a prospector's tall tale into something with the fingerprints of an institution on it. Because Kincaid did not, according to the article, keep this to himself. He said he carried artifacts and notes out of the canyon and sent them straight to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, the most respected scientific body in the country. And the Smithsonian, the story says, was impressed enough to fund a full expedition. The man named as leading that expedition was a Professor S.A. Jordan of the Smithsonian. He'd reportedly brought a team of around 40 men into the canyon, and they were excavating the site as the article went to press, working their way deeper into the tunnels, cataloging the rooms, the bodies, the relics. The piece even carried a warning. The entrance, it said, lay nearly 1,500 feet down a sheer wall on government land. Trespassers would be prosecuted. The scientists wished to do their work, in the article's words, undisturbed. And then, silence. That front page ran once. And as far as the historical record is concerned, the story simply stopped. No follow-up, no museum exhibit, nothing. Kincaid's name vanishes. Professor Jordan's name vanishes. The Citadel vanishes. As the story is told today, the two men who stood at the mouth of the greatest archaeological discovery in American history were, after that, never heard from again. So in the years since, researchers did the obvious thing. They went to the Smithsonian and asked the simple question, who were these men? And the Smithsonian's answer has never changed. They have no record of a G.E. Kincaid, no record of any Professor S.A. Jordan, no record of any Smithsonian-funded expedition into the Grand Canyon in 1909, or of any tunnel, or mummies, or idol. And, they add, no Egyptian artifact has ever been found anywhere in North or South America. Officially, the whole thing is a hoax, a sensational piece written to sell newspapers in an age when a wild front-page yarn could move a lot of copies. And on its face, that's the sensible answer. No second newspaper picked up a story this enormous. No photograph ever surfaced, no tablet, no copper sword, no jar of ancient seeds. For a find that would have been front-page news across the entire world, there is precisely one piece of paper, and the institution it names says it never happened. For most stories, that would be the end. Case closed. A clever fake from 1909. Except the people who believe make one unsettling point. A total absence of records is exactly what a hoax looks like. And it is also exactly what a cover-up looks like. Because here's the thing about the official denial. It cannot be checked. If the Smithsonian had quietly boxed up a discovery it found inconvenient, the records of Kincaid and Jordan would be gone, and the institution would tell you, truthfully, that it has no record of them. Both the innocent explanation and the sinister one produce the very same answer: an empty file. And then you look at the map, because the region the article points toward, that stretch of the canyon's wild interior, is dotted with names that stop you cold. Rising out of the rock are great natural formations, and someone, long ago, gave them names. Isis Temple, Osiris Temple, the Tower of Set, the Tower of Ra, Cheops Pyramid, and nearby, Buddha Temple, Shiva Temple, Manu Temple, an entire pantheon of Egyptian gods and Eastern deities clustered together, printed on an official United States government map. Now, there's a documented explanation. In the 1880s, a geologist named Clarence Dutton and his colleagues mapped this part of the canyon, and they had a romantic habit of borrowing grand names from the great religions and myths of the world for the most majestic peaks. A flourish of 19th century map-making set down years before anyone had ever heard of G.E. Kincaid. That's the official story, and it's almost certainly the true one. But the believers ask a quieter question. Of all the mythologies on Earth, Greek, Norse, Roman, why did this one stretch of canyon get Egypt? Why did the mapmakers reach for Isis and Osiris and Ra and pile them up in precisely the area where, a generation later, a man would claim to have found an Egyptian tomb in the rock? A coincidence, surely. Or, as the story goes, a clue. A marker left by someone who knew what was buried there, hidden in plain sight under a mapmaker's whim. And then there's the part that's hardest to wave away. The part you can actually go and stand in front of. Because much of that interior backcountry is real, and it is closed. Large stretches of the Grand Canyon's remote heart sit inside restricted zones, permit only, off limits, sealed. The park gives reasons that are perfectly sound, protecting fragile caves, protecting colonies of bats, keeping people from breaking their necks on terrain that kills the unprepared. There are said to be around 1,000 caves in the canyon. Only about 30 have ever been mapped. Many are gated shut. And that real, enforced no-go zone overlaps exactly with the legend. Over the years, people have gone looking anyway. Two researchers, Jerry and Kathy Wills, claimed they located what they believed was the explorers' old base camp and a likely cave entrance, and said that while they were out there, an unmarked plane appeared overhead, in airspace where nothing was supposed to be flying. Another group reported being buzzed by a military helicopter. People talk of strange concrete platforms anchored to the rim. Officials say they're just reinforcements against rockfall. Each of those things has an ordinary explanation, every single one. And yet they keep happening in the same place, to the people asking the same forbidden question. So step back and ask why anyone would bury a discovery like this in the first place. What would be worth erasing two men's names over? The answer is the timeline. The whole accepted story of the Americas rests on a simple idea that the people who reached this continent came across from Asia on foot long ago and developed here on their own, cut off from the old civilizations of Egypt and the East. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Now put a chamber full of Egyptian hieroglyphs and a Buddha-faced idol inside an American canyon. If that were ever proven real, the foundation cracks. It would mean that thousands of years ago, someone crossed an ocean and built a city in the heart of North America, and that the entire official history was wrong. That is the motive the believers point to. Not greed, not secrecy for its own sake. A discovery so disruptive that it could not be allowed to stand. Better, they say, to make it disappear. Better to let the file sit empty and let the canyon keep its locked doors. And let one strange yellowed front page from 1909 be the only proof that anyone ever climbed those steps in the rock at all. And it remains the only proof. One article, one date. Two men the Smithsonian swears never existed, who walked into a tunnel 1,500 feet up a canyon wall, lit their lamps, and were never seen again. Somewhere out there, behind the gates, in the part of the Grand Canyon you are not allowed to enter. That's as far as the paper trail goes. The rest got classified, redacted, or quietly lost. Make of that what you will. Thanks for sitting with me in the dark a while. There's always another file they would rather stayed buried, so keep asking the questions, and I'll see you on the next one.